the man who chose forgiveness, Mandela, and the prison that freed his soul. But what they didn't understand was that some men are not built from flesh and bone alone. Of a man who could have chosen bitterness, but instead chose transformation. He showed the world something we've all forgotten, that power doesn't always come from shouting, it often comes from silence. He was 46, already a revolutionary, already a symbol. Lights never fully went off, and silence was constantly interrupted by commands barked in aftercons. Yet Mandela's first weapon was restraint. He refused to let his dignity rot with the rags they gave him. This was his resistance, to remain composed, even when the world offered no reason to be. He read, he thought. He wrote letters that were censored but still carried fire. He wasn't giving speeches now. He was leading by presence, by how he carried himself even in chains. He asked questions, remained calm, and stared them in the eye. Robben Island wasn't just a prison. It was a place designed to bury voices. He didn't need to shout. His silence said more than rage ever could. He used silence as strategy. When insulted, he remained composed. What they saw instead was a man impossible to humiliate. Mandela's strength wasn't in what he said, it was in what he chose not to say. Prisoners began to gravitate toward him, like iron to magnet. He didn't organize rallies behind bars. He taught through presence, through subtle discipline. He spoke when it mattered, and when he did, people listened. There was something holy in his restraint. Even the hardest men on Robben Island began to mirror his steadiness. The silence grew contagious. It became their form of protest. Many guards began to question the very system they worked for. It didn't happen in a day or a year, but over time their own walls cracked. Mandela's dignity haunted them. He didn't curse them, he didn't blame them. That, more than any insult, made them see him not as a number but as a man. This wasn't the silence of surrender. It was the silence of supreme control, of a man so centered in his purpose that he no longer needed permission to feel powerful. Mandela had no platform, no crowd, no microphone, yet in that silence, he became louder than the government that tried to silence him. The world might not have seen it yet, but on Robben Island, history was already being rewritten. In a place where time felt endless and despair crept through every crack in the walls, Mandela chose discipline as his shield. He woke up at the same time each day, cleaned his space with care, and kept his appearance neat, even when no one was watching. This structure gave him a sense of control in a place designed to strip him of it. It wasn't just survival, it was self-mastery. To the guards, it was confusing. To his fellow inmates, it was inspiring. He refused to allow the prison to define him. Mandela read whatever he could get his hands on: law, philosophy, politics. Books became his ammunition, and his mind a battlefield of ideas. He studied his captors, not to hate them, but to understand them. He believed that true revolution started from within. His discipline wasn't loud, but it was relentless. It became his quiet protest, his declaration of identity. He also trained his body. Even in a cramped cell, Mandela exercised regularly. He kept himself physically and mentally sharp. He treated his life, even in prison, as preparation, not for revenge but for return. That mindset shifted everything. He wasn't wasting time, he was investing it, preparing to walk out stronger, wiser, and ready to lead a wounded nation. The guards may have thought he was aging in a cage, but Mandela was transforming. But Mandela never judged them. He offered guidance without preaching. When tensions arose, he was often the one who calmed the others down. He reminded them that they were more than victims, they were builders of the future. His discipline gave him authority, and his empathy gave him trust. This daily consistency slowly built a fortress around his spirit. While others waited for freedom to be handed to them, Mandela became free through his actions. His cell didn't cage his purpose, it refined it. In those 27 years, he didn't just endure injustice, he transformed it into a new kind of leadership. Mandela was a prisoner, yet over time he earned the respect of the very people sent to crush him. That confused many, and moved others. They began to see a human where they were told to see a threat. He treated the wardens as men, even when they treated him as less. That kind of grace has power. It shifts perception. He didn't demand equality, he embodied it. It was impossible to spend time around Mandela. Some guards secretly admired him. Others became reluctant allies. Small favors were returned quietly: more books, less hostility, better treatment. Not because Mandela begged, but because he inspired. He made even his captors think. His presence forced introspection. How could a man so calm, so centered, be dangerous? The government called him a terrorist. He never raised a fist, but he raised the standard of how a man should be treated, even when the world tried to dehumanize him. His resistance wasn't visible in punches, it was present in every word he chose, every moment he paused instead of reacting. That, in itself, became a revolution. By the time Mandela left Robben Island, he was no longer just a political figure. He had become a moral compass, a man whose power came not from weapons or wealth, but from the undeniable truth of his character. The world finally looked at him not just as a prisoner, but as a symbol of what true strength looks like when you don't allow hate to make you its mirror. As the years passed, Mandela watched time strip away many things: youth, contact with his family, the world he once knew. But one thing grew stronger: his sense of purpose. Ideas are hard to lock up, and Mandela's ideas had matured into a force of their own. Letters he wrote to his wife, to his children, to old comrades. Each one became a bridge between past and future. Some were censored, some were never sent. But the act of writing kept him connected to the cause. He believed that every word carried weight, and one day they would be heard. Every sentence written in that cell was a seed planted for a nation he hadn't yet seen, but still believed in. When the world finally began to pay attention again, Mandela was ready. The world had changed, but so had he. He emerged with a calm strength that disarmed even his enemies. He didn't demand vengeance, he demanded truth. He didn't want punishment, he wanted healing. And so, the man who spent 27 years behind bars walked out and became a leader who refused to lead with bitterness. That day, February 11, 1990, he walked free, not as a victim but as a visionary. His freedom didn't begin at the prison gate. It began the moment he decided to rule his emotions, not let them rule him. And in doing so, he reminded the world that there is a kind of power far greater than force. The power to choose who you become, even when you lose everything. And perhaps that's Mandela's greatest lesson. You, Dan T, have to lift a finger to defeat hate. Nelson Mandela's story isn't just about history. It's about what happens when a man refuses to become the monster that hurt him. It's about choosing growth over revenge and peace over pride. He didn't break his enemies with violence. He broke the cycle of hatred by choosing who he wanted to be even when the world gave him every reason to become something else. That is the kind of strength we rarely see and desperately need. He built it inside himself, one act of grace at a time. Thank you for watching. And remember, true power lies not in how you fight, but in how you choose to forgive. Thank you for watching, and remember, true power lies not in how you fight, but in how you choose to forgive.